Hey, how you doing?
Hey mom, I watched another movie.
Ooh, what'd you watch?
Being John Malkovich.
Yeah, I've never seen that one. How was it? I hear it's nuts.
It I've been thinking, I watched it last night and I have been thinking this whole time how to explain it to you. It
How do you explain nuts to someone who hasn't seen nuts? It's probably
I'm
difficult.
surprised that it's such a wild concept, but it is delivered in a it goes 100% on it. It doesn't half bake the idea. It's a wild concept, but they like commit to it 100%. And
Wow.
that is kind of how that's why it works. So there's this down on his luck puppeteer who is like very into puppeteering,
Okay.
and that's his art. But that's not going well, so he gets a job at like a filing company, and he goes there for the interview, and it's immediately very whimsical because it's on the seventh and a half floor.
Seven and a half.
Yeah, like Harry
Okay.
Potter, like a bit of like Harry Potter or three fourth, but it's even more wild because to get there, he goes into the elevator, and then this woman's like, "You're going to the seventh and a half floor," and he's like, "Yeah," and so when it gets in between the seventh and eighth floor, she has to press the emergency stop button on the elevator, and all the bells start ringing and screaming, and she has to open the thing with a crowbar, and there in between the two floors is this tight floor with a low overhang that you have to like crouch to be in, but it's a whole office.
Kind of making fun of ridiculous office spaces. Was it in New York?
Yeah, oh yeah, of course it was in New York.
Oh yeah, like you have to sleep in a closet and so it's
No, it
probably a play on that.
yeah, it is. But so he
Cause
gets his job, but it's kind of sets the tone so that when he's working and he finds this door, like this little almost hobbit door behind a filing cabinet, you're kind of primed for that level of whimsical, right? And,
yeah,
and he goes in there, and it puts you in the mind of John Malkovich, the actor,
this is cool.
and for 15 minutes. So for 15 minutes, you are John Malkovich. But like you're
Cool.
just in his head, and you see through his eyes, and he's doing the most mundane things. Right? He's just a normal guy. He's like eating toast or ordering towels or just extremely ordinary things. But since he's a celebrity, they try to turn a profit. They're turning it into like an amusement park ride, like this side gig where they get people to pay money to be John Malkovich for 15 minutes, and people love it. So that's on the side, but there's also like the main heart of the story is this love triangle because the puppeteer has a wife who he doesn't really love, and he wants to have an affair with this office lady. The When his wife goes through the Malkovich thing, she has like this sexual awakening where she realizes that like she's like really into being in the body of a guy, and is having like this whole like emotional experience where, and the girl that the puppeteer is into that, and then they start like a romance through John Malkovich. While being John Malkovich, she's romancing John Malkovich, but she's intentionally timing it to do it while she's in John Malkovich.
Okay. Yeah, I would have loved to see how they wrote this into a script.
No, the script must have been insane because how did that get? I mean, it's so
How did you when
wild.
you were pitching this? How did you even get this? Okay, this is what we're gonna do. Everyone is confused. Like
I need to read that
what?
script. I need to just to understand because that must be a mark. It must be so good to be able to sell that
No, the person
concept.
that sold this is the world's greatest salesperson.
It's wild.
I need to know what he said.
So the wild thing was the movie was so good. Like it was such a insane concept that, but it was they committed to it. Like what are all the things that can be done with a portal to someone's brain for 15 minutes, and they did all sorts of wild mind shenanigans. So of course I loved it. Everyone is so selfish and out for themselves. All these people are like screwing with him in his head, and he kind of feels so bad for him. So the actor John Malkovich, by the way, this script was written without him involved, and then they got him on. The script was floating around.
Somebody wrote this without him involved?
Yes! And I have to imagine how this happened landing on his desk. Can you imagine reading that? Reading that story as yourself.
And the thing is, I was thinking, and you thought of me when you wrote this. What does that say?
Like, out of all the actors to choose
all
from.
the actors, you thought of me.
But I mean, I respect that he was like, yeah, I'll do it. It was a great acting performance because he was playing like a version of himself, but he was also playing various people who were basically puppeteering him.
Right.
So he had to play a slew of people, and like it was convincing. You could tell which one was which. He plays himself as like very soft spoken and kind of. He was playing him as very understated. And when you're in his head and there's people like, are you John Malkovich? And he's like, yes. And they're like, I loved you in that Jewel Thief movie, which at the time he was not in a Jewel Thief movie. So it was like a running joke through the whole film that everyone remembered him for this movie that he never did. But it's doubly funny because a few years later he did do a Jewel Thief movie. So retroactive.
Well, then it became a moral imperative.
Can you imagine later he's like, oh, I can do a Jewel Thief movie now. I was reading that when that John Malkovich, the actual actor, got notes from the director that he at some point he made some acting choice, and the director told him, like, yeah, I don't think that's what John Malkovich would do. I mean, it makes sense because it's not him. It's like a different version of him. They committed to that because they changed his middle name. Like in the movie, his middle name is Horatio, which is not his actual middle name. It was crazy, and there was a lot of people in it. Like, Cameron Diaz plays the wife.
Cameron Diaz is in it?
Yes, and also wow. John Cusack's the puppeteer.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But, they were playing very awkward, they were not supposed to be attractive people, and the makeup department said that the hardest thing in that whole movie was trying to make Cameron Diaz unattractive.
That probably was very hard because she's so naturally beautiful.
Yeah, she's gorgeous.
You're gonna make her ugly?
I knew I recognized her, but they successfully made it so I did not realize it was Cameron Diaz. Like, I could tell I knew this actress, and I could tell that this actress didn't look like herself, but I couldn't pinpoint who it was. But she did great. She sold that role. It's hard to explain this movie. It had character arcs. It had it had all the things you'd expect, and it worked as a movie, and it had themes, and it had all this. It's just the concept was so bonkers. I loved it, though.
Well, you're very good at explaining it, but it still sounds very nuts.
It was nuts. I have such respect for how well they executed such a concept. Like a normal person would have bungled that job because it's just so, you'd think it'd be so confusing, but they kind of have you. Like, they explain it well enough that even though the most random things, like the things that happen are crazy, you're on board kind of the whole time. They're gonna show me at some point this other movie that this screenwriter wrote called Adaptation
Mm-hmm.
that has Nicolas Cage in it, and
Whoa. Okay.
it's it's also wild.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, the three big things he's done that people know is this one, Being John Malkovich, Adaptation, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Okay.
And which I did see that one. I saw that one right like it was leaving Netflix or something, and I it was on my list to see, so I saw it.